Welcome. My talk today is about Canada, and I would like that at the end of my talk, you think about Canada in another way. Actually, it's an untapped market, and there's money to be made. So when we think about Canada, there's about half of all the medication you have developed, half of the orphan drug, which we do not have access to it in Canada. So we're missing somewhat 200 orphan drugs. There's reason for it. I don't blame you not to come to Canada, but someone could say, well, Eric, we're not going to Canada because you don't even have an Orphan Drug Act. And that's true. I'm not really proud of it. In the United States, we've been having an Orphan Drug Act since 31 years, and in Europe for 14 years. In Canada, we're still thinking about it. It's kind of our Canadian way, want to make it right, baby step. I could tell you that the good news is that I believe in 2014, we will have an Orphan Drug Act. So that's the good news. The bad news is that most probably what made the Orphan Drug Act in the United States and many different countries so successful is the fact that you have exclusivity attached to it. And I don't think we'll have any exclusivity attached to our Orphan Drug Act. I think we'll have the exclusivity only in 2016, 2 years after having our first Orphan Drug Act. So let's see that as being a step in the right direction. But saying so, I believe that in Canada, we have somewhat like a marketing problem. We don't know how to sell ourselves. And I'm biased, I'm Canadian, but I think we could do better. So as an example, I'll show you a bit of our national anthem. When you look at the national anthem, think about the marketing problem we have. If I'm trying to convince you to come to Canada, look at this. Polar bear. Okay. Nobody lives in Canada. The last time I've checked, you're not developing any drug for polar bear. And if you look the amount of patients you may have, well, we saw just one kid crossing a frozen lake. That's maybe the only patient you'll have. So, problem of marketing. Since I'm Canadian, I took upon myself, I did a new national anthem, which I think it'll be better for me to be able to convince you that we need your drug and you have to at least try to bring your drug in Canada, whether it's by yourself or with a partner. Here's a new one. There's people. So I think that's better. So in Canada, in order to develop this talk that I've made, I started by interviewing a lot of CEOs in this world of orphan drug and try to understand why are we missing 200 orphan drug in Canada. So I kind of look at the myth, the legend surrounding those reasons. So I'll start with now the first myth. Nobody lives in Canada. Well, I disagree. It's cold, it's true, but we are 34.5 million individuals living in Canada. So an American may say, well, it's about big like California, but every American company tries to sell their drug in California, unless Kaiser says no. If you look in Europe, you have to add Belgium, Switzerland, Austria, Netherlands, all together in order to get the population of Canada. And everyone in Europe tried to sell in those countries. So there's a market there. Myth number 2, medication cannot be sold before approval. Well, yes, you can. You can actually sell your drug in Canada because there's a law in Canada that says that if ever you need a drug for yourself, you may be able to have access to it. And there's a program. All the big pharma are using it. It's called the Special Access Program. So before approval, I'm not saying it's not complicated, but it's doable. You can have your drug shipped in Canada, and they will pay for it. So who will pay for it? If it's an injectable drug, most probably it'll be the hospital that will pay for it. If it's an oral drug, the hospital will pay for it. Maybe not, maybe the patient. Maybe it'll be the province that will pay for it. Remember, this is before approval. You'll be amazed how many millions of dollars some of the pharmaceutical companies have made by selling their drug in Canada before approval. So you can do it. Myth number 3, Canadian government controls prices. Well, yes and no. If your product has no patent, well, you can charge what the market will bear. You can charge whatever you want. You're not controlling your price at all. You may say, yeah, well, I may get genericized. Well, in Canada, rule of thumb, if you're selling less than $5 million, there's maybe examples, but chances are you will not get genericized. And most of your drugs are pretty complicated to copy. So the more complicated it is, the bigger the market you can have. If you have a patent, yes, we control the price. It's called the PMPRB, Patent Medicine Price Review Board. And they will control the price, and I'll explain that later. Myth number 4, Canada is a low-price country. Well, I respectfully disagree. If you do not have a patent, you're charging what you want, and you can pay the increase every year as you want. If you have a patent, the PMPRB, although many people hate the idea of having like a price that is controlled, well, the PMPRB is looking at reference country. Those reference countries are United States, Switzerland, Sweden, UK, Germany, France, Italy. And they're looking at the median price. So what it means that you take out United States, and you take out the price of UK and Italy. So it means that in Canada, you will somewhat have the price of Switzerland, Sweden, Germany. This is high price. So it's a high price country. Well, lower than United States compared to United States, but we are all lower than United States. So, myth number 5, parallel import between Canada and United States. Well, that's an interesting one. And this is one that is really hurting us a lot. There's a lot of CEOs that are afraid that if their drug has a lower price in Canada, that it'll be shipped back to the United States. So they say, why should I send some to Canada? The reality is, for orphan drug, it's a non-issue. You know, it's extremely rare that a drug will come from Canada and go to the United States. If you look at a common drug, let's say kind of the Lipitor of this world, well, Lipitor doesn't have any problem anymore because the generic drug are more expensive in Canada than in the United States. But before it was genericized, for the Lipitor of this world, it's true that you had maybe less than 0.5% of the drug that we consume in Canada that was going to the United States. If you're thinking about injectable drugs, it's less than 0.2%. So the Canadian government, you know, they're not stupid. They know that if Pfizer sells their drug in Canada at a cheaper price and we're selling all back to the United States, they will stop shipping drugs. and we need those drugs. So the Canadian government is doing everything they can to stop this parallel import. When you see all those internet pharmacy, Canada.com pharmacy, something like that, they're not Canadian. The drug comes from India, they come from Europe. So at the American border, they know that those drugs are not Canadian, and they're doing their best to stop it. Another thing that is helping to make sure that how much drug are crossing the border is going down, it's the Obamacare. Why would you think about having a drug on internet from Canada, maybe, if it's all covered? So right now, for common drug, less than 0.5%, it's going down. For orphan drug, forget it. There's no parallel import. So you cannot use that as a reason to say, I don't want to sell my drug in Canada. The Canadian government pays for medication. Well, I hear that a lot. Canadian government pays for nothing. You know, it's like the Canadian government will approve the drug, and the province will pay for the drug. It's like the EMEA will approve the drug, and it's the countries that will pay for the drug. So the Canadian government will not pay for it. Oh, that's a good one. Myth number 7, market access is hell. Well, yes, it is. You know, I hope I didn't have to say that, but it's really hell. It's pure hell. Because the way the system works, since it's the province that decide which drug that they will pay, it means that you may have an oncologic drug paid in Ontario, and it will not be paid in Quebec. You may have like an orphan drug paid in Ontario, not in Quebec. So you have it or you don't. So what it means for the pharmaceutical company, it means that you really have to invest time and energy in order to work with patient group, physician, lobbyists, to lobby each of the 10 provinces to make sure that everyone is paying for it. Because what happened is that at one point, patient that needed a drug could not have it because it was not covered by Quebec, would just move to Ontario. But now in Ontario, they're getting very intelligent. They said, well, have you paid tax here in the last 3 years? No? We won't cover it. It's inhuman, but this is how the system works. So as a pharmaceutical company, you cannot just say, well, the 3 biggest provinces are Quebec, Ontario, and Alberta. I don't really care about the rest. It won't work because at one point, you'll receive a call from Saskatchewan. You'll have a patient that will really need it. And then the decision will be yours. Am I paying for it or not? So market access is an issue. I talked to you about the special access program where you can actually get the drug reimbursed and paid for before approval. Well, the special access program most probably will, if the drug has already been approved in another jurisdiction, let's say in Europe, they will agree with it. But it's the payer that now are getting cold feet more and more. So when the province are seeing those $250,000 and more for chronic disease, more and more I'm hearing some doors shutting now, if I may say. They are getting more nervous about it. So there's a way to do it, but it's clear that those people doesn't have to see you as being just like, you know, coming here, making money, and flying with it, you know. So you have to have this relationship, you know. You're coming with one drug, you're here to stay, and you'll come back with another drug, you're talking to those people. It's not a hit and run kind of thing. Myth number 8, no Orphan Drug Act means no protection. Well, it's not because we don't have an Orphan Drug Act that you cannot act. Think about it. Canada is one of the top 10 countries in the world when you think about the amount of money we spend on medication. Can you afford not being there? If you look at what is the highest price you can get, rule of thumb, the older the patient gets, less the province wants to pay for. But if you have an injectable for neonates, this is where you can ask for a high price. Rule of thumb. But if you look at the kind of protection you can get in Canada, we respect patent, so you can have 20 years. We respect all the patent on indication. We'll respect that. If you come in with a new chemical entity, we'll give you 8-year data protection. That's not bad. But it's true that if you have a repurposed drug and you don't have a patent on it, you will not get in Canada the protection you will get in the United States or you will get in Europe. But again, if your market is less than $5 million, you got a market here. Myth number 9. The best way to introduce a drug on the Canadian market is through a North American deal. Well, this is a mistake that many European countries are doing. I don't know why they're looking at the map. Well, looks like a bucket, you know. You put Canada, United States, you sell it. Actually, what it means is that when you do that, it means that if you're dealing with a big pharma, there's no problem. Big pharma are very good in Canada. They understand the special access program, the pricing, the PMPRB, they all understand that. There's no problem. But most of the pharmaceutical companies in this arena are small companies. So they don't understand the specificity of Canada. So what it means is you're selling your license for United States, and they get Canada for free. And most probably, the chance of you having revenue from one of the top 10 countries in the world, from Canada, is very, very slim. Because they will not understand the difference. Like Canada, it looks more like Europe. It's more socialistic. You know, if the company thinks that Canada is a bit like another state of the United States, it won't work. So the best way you can do it is whether you come yourself in Canada in order to sell your drug, or you find a partner in Canada, but you split your deal. You have a deal with the United States and a deal with Canada. So in conclusion, you know, we have to go beyond the myth and the legend. You know, the fact of the matter is that Canada, it's a rich country. You know, we thrive on economic activities. We're doing very well. If you look at the, you know, mid-class revenue of a family in Canada, it's higher than in the United States. Just as an example, we have oil, we have resources. You know, we have people, 34.5 million people. It's a high-priced country. It's an untapped market, and there's money to be made. So the reality is that Canadian is suffering from not having access to your expertise, to your medication. You can make money, and you can make a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Can you, I think what will be helpful is the best way to make the most persuasive argument is give us an example. And since you've actually helped facilitate orphan drug approvals in Canada, would love to hear the best example of an orphan drug that was successful that you can share to let people know how companies have found success, maybe even working with your company.
First thing first, there's no silver bullet. There's not one activity you'll do if you think about market access that will work. If you think about special access program, like, you know, I'm biased, but the advantage of Medunik Canada, we have 7 products. So we always in discussion with them. They know us. They know how we work, what they like to see. If you're just selling your drug to a special access program and you never intend to have this drug approved in Canada, at one point they will block you. If you're saying, look, I would like to provide it to patient, but I'm working towards, with Health Canada, to have it approved. That works. If you look at once you are approved, again, it's all a question of relationship. If once you're approved, you just jack up your price every 2 months, at one point they say, hey, what are you doing to me? You know, it's just, you have to have this sense of, you know, a long relationship that you would like to have. and be open for discussion and trying to understand their point. So the hit and run kind of thing doesn't work, and it's all about relation. I hate to say that, but we have to lobby each and every province.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.